Good afternoon. I'm Eric Blank, and it's 4 p.m. on December 17th. I'm the chair of the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, and this is a public comment hearing in proceeding number 24AL-0377E, the Public Service Company of Colorado time of use rate proceeding. We're going to start off with a short introductory summary of the company's filing by our communications director, Ms. Megan Castle. Megan, you're up.
Thank you. I will read a bailiff statement, and about this, as you just described, this proceeding was filed by Public Service on September 3rd, 2024. It was assigned to PUC proceeding number 24AL-0377E, which is the number to refer to if you want to follow the case further. In this proceeding, Public Service proposes to change its time of use, otherwise known as TOU, rate. The Commission required Public Service to file its TOU rates for review in September 2024 so that any changes, if approved by the Commission, could be implemented starting sometime in 2025. With TOU rates, customers pay different charges for electricity depending upon when it is used each day. Higher charges apply during peak hours, and lower charges apply during off-peak hours. Currently, peak hours for residential customers are from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. year-round. The company is proposing different hours depending upon the season. Under the proposal, June through September, peak hours would be 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. This would extend the on-peak period by 2 hours in the summer. Non-summer on-peak hours would shift 2 hours later than the current approach to 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Public Service also proposes to eliminate certain shoulder periods, modify peak to off-peak period price ratios for residential customers, modify certain electric vehicle schedule on-peak periods, extend the secondary general TOU pilot for an additional 2 years to provide sufficient time for additional customers to enroll and participate, and make various other modifications to its tariffs that involve TOU rates. Public Service requests that the Commission allow the company 4 months from the date of a final Commission decision to implement updated TOU rates. Public Service states that the new TOU rates are not expected to have any effect on the company's annual revenue and will have negligible bill impacts for the average customer. However, differently situated customers may experience different impacts depending upon the extent the customers shift their electricity usage based on the proposed TOU rate schedules. 7 parties have intervened in the proceeding, including trial staff of the Commission, the Colorado Office of the Utility Consumer Advocate, the City of Boulder, the Colorado Renewable Energy Society, Energy Outreach Colorado, Colorado Solar and Storage Association, and Solar Energy Industries Association, and Western Resource Advocates. Each of these parties filed witness testimony on November 25th explaining what they think about Public Service's proposals. The parties can file an additional round of testimony on December 21st, 2024. This will be followed by an evidentiary hearing in January where parties may cross-examine the witnesses on their testimony. After that, the Commission will take up the matter for decision and set the TOU charges and periods to be used by Public Service to bill its customers going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start off thanking everyone for joining us here today. The public comment hearing is a critical part of this process, and me for one of the most valuable where we get to hear directly from impacted customers and other stakeholders. As always, these are difficult and challenging issues, and we don't have all the answers, which is why hearing from all of you is so important. With that, can my colleagues introduce themselves for the record and share any opening comments? Commissioner Plant.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Commissioner Tom Plant, and just want to echo the thanks of the chairman for coming and participating in this public process. We hear from the same people a lot, and so it's really great to hear from the public about your perspectives on how the issues before the commission impact your lives. So appreciate the input and look forward to hearing the comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Goman.
Likewise, good afternoon, Commissioner Megan Gilman. Thank you everyone for joining us. Really looking forward to hearing from you on this important issue when we're looking at how to set those future rates for Public Service Company of Colorado to best reflect some of the peak cost times on the system. So really look forward to hearing your perspectives. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you both. Just quick comments and logistics. This is a public comment hearing. Today is being recorded. It'll always be live, including during any break. There's a court reporter who is listening to this proceeding and will take down what you say for the record. This comment hearing is formal, like a court proceeding, and we ask that the audience be respectful of the speakers that comment today. In our role as commissioners at this stage of the process, we're here to listen and learn and to make sure your comments are reflected in the record. We will not answer questions or respond to statements. Like a judge, we cannot engage in dialogue on this case pending before us. This case is ongoing and we will not make any decisions until after an evidentiary hearing. I will call on commenters today in order by which speakers hold up their hand icon. We will also welcome written comments at any time, which can be filed through the Commission's e-filing system, submitted by our online comment form, or email to dora_puc_website@state.co.us. In each case, we'd request that you specify this proceeding number 24AL-0377. The Commission equally weighs public comments received, written or orally. So we encourage you to follow up by filing whatever you'd like in written form. With that, I want to thank you all again for taking the time to be here and share your thoughts. With that, we'll now turn to our speakers in order of when I see your virtual hand raised, and I see one up, Mr. Dwight Bordelon.
Hello. Is my audio and video working?
Yeah, we can see and hear you. Okay,
great. Thank you. My name is Dwight Bordelon. I'm a resident in Denver. I'm a customer from to Xcel Energy. I do have some comments to provide about the proposed time of use rate changes. Really appreciate y'all's time and interest in receiving some feedback. I do have 6 slides that I can go through quickly, a couple of graphics in there, but just to kind of highlight some of the points that I wanted to make. If it's okay, I'd like to share that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I think you sent the slides in, or somehow you worked with our team to figure that out.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was told that I could do a screen share. I'm new to Zoom, so I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yes, there's a button at the bottom. It just says share. If you click that and then click the screen you'd like to present, you'll be able to share it and click through it.
Perfect. I believe I'm sharing a PowerPoint. Does that sound correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I can see it.
Excellent. So I'll be brief. So I think there are 2 assumptions that I've heard to support the proposed changes, and I'd like to challenge the validity of those 2 assumptions. And I know that there's filings by Xcel, and I don't reference those specifically, but I do have reference here to a news article. I'm assuming they got it right. But in that article, it references, this was on 9 News, it references that Xcel customers can choose to use when they use electricity. I think that's true to some degree, but maybe not to a large extent. And I think the impact of the inability to choose periods when electricity is lower will in fact have an impact on folks' bottom line. I think electricity is expensive, and I think it's only going to get more expensive as commodity prices go up. So I'm interested in keeping rates where they're at or lower. And I think the inability to choose when I use electricity will mean that I have to use it when it's more expensive, and I don't like that. The second assumption that I think has been put forward is that there's more solar and wind generated electricity early in the day and less in the afternoon. I do have some data from the Energy Information Administration that I'd like to share to challenge that assumption, which I think is a key underpinning to the proposed TOU rate changes. So my first or the next 3 slides kind of address how people have the ability to choose when they use power or not. So I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. There's references down at the bottom of the slide. The short story is most people work between 8 and 5, and they're home by 6 o'clock and go to bed between 10 and 11. I find it interesting that the federal government records this kind of stuff, but it's pretty useful in this instance to demonstrate people are home between 6 and 10 p.m. That's when we need to wash our clothes, cook our dinners, feed our children, bathe our children, maybe watch TV, consume electricity. I can't do those things while I'm at work. And I think that's an important point, that it's great if I was able to, let's say, cook my dinner at 11 o'clock in the morning. Unrealistic in my opinion. Let's see, going to the next slide. So I think there's 2 general types of power use in a residence. There's things that we use kind of continuously, and then there's things that we elect to use at different times. There's a number of appliances that are recommended to operate continuously. So the refrigerator and freezer are 2 examples that I cite here. The Department of Energy, the Food and Drug Administration recommends maintaining refrigerators at 40 degrees Fahrenheit and freezers at 0 degrees Fahrenheit to keep food safe, right? To keep it from spoiling. I can't elect to operate my refrigerator and freezer from 8 to 11 in the morning and then turn it off until the next units, but a lot of people have tank water heaters. It's kind of a big expense to change. Those also are recommended by the Department of Energy to operate continuously. If you operate them only part of the day, there's a high likelihood of growing bacteria that can result in Legionnaire's disease. So again, something that I have to operate all the time. And then lastly, the Department of Energy, I didn't write that correctly, but the DOE does not recommend turning off HVAC systems. Whether I'm operating my heat or my cooling system, that needs to run throughout the day. I can certainly turn it up or turn it down to get it more efficient, but it'll cost me more if I turn it off and then turn it back on later. So 3 examples of relatively high power usage appliances that really need to operate all the time, and I can't elect to just use them periodically. Referencing the Energy Information Administration, again, links at the bottom of the slide show where I got this data, but this kind of details where the average household uses their electricity. So you can see keeping food in a freezer or refrigerator, cooking, drying clothes, water heating, heat and AC, all the usual things that you would assume. That represents about 3/4 of the amount of energy that we use. And I would argue all of these things are power consumption that the average person would expect to be able to operate at their home at a reasonable cost. And we can't always, not all of these, or rather most of these are ones that we can't say, well, I'm just going to do it from 8 in the morning to 11 in the morning. If I'm home from 6 to 10 at night, that's probably when I'm going to need to use these things. So all of that, those slides basically just documents kind of the need to use these appliances either throughout the day or at specific times when I'm home. And it's not really reasonable, I think, to ask someone to own at specific times when rates are low for whatever reason. This is the one slide that I have addressing the assertion that wind and solar power are more plentiful or generated more early in the morning versus later in the day. I hope you'll take some time to look at this later. There's a lot going on here, but basically what I did was I downloaded data from the EIA that Excel provided detailing the source of electricity generation on an hourly basis over the last 12 months. I sliced out June 1st through September 30th as an example, because this is the period that I think is potentially impacted by the rate increase. And what I find interesting is we don't see a line that's really high that says the highest power generation is from 8 to 11 in the morning. In fact, the 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., which is the light blue trace, kind of comes up and down and up and down and up and down over the course of those 3 months. And in reality, solar power and wind power are, a result of what's going on in the environment, and they're not steady state. So I think it's unfair to claim that the amount of power generated by these renewable resources is higher at any given time, and that we should be penalized for not using power during that time or using power outside of that time. But furthermore, I've calculated the average hourly rates of these 4 periods over this June to September period. And you can see from 3 to 9 p.m. on an hourly basis, there's actually more solar and wind generated electricity in the period that Excel is proposing to increase the TOU rate to force people to use it at a different time. So it's kind of counterintuitive. Why are we trying to force people to use power at a time when there really isn't, on average, higher solar and wind electricity generation? And in summation, just to address the 2 assumptions that I introduced earlier, the assumption, first off, that the customers have the ability to choose when they use electricity, I find that to be unrealistic. Live in the United States, I think we have a standard of living that would, is commiserate with being able to use power when it's convenient. We can't choose to not use our refrigerators and freezers or HVAC systems throughout the day. Those are kind of things that we need to operate throughout the day. And then because most people are at work during the day, most people need to use electricity when they get home. And it seems unfair that Excel would ask people to use energy when they're not at home, or to pay double to cook their kids dinner when they do get home. And then on the assumption too, more electricity is generated from solar and wind between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. As compared to between 3 and 9. I don't see it. Now, certainly I just took one slice of data off of the EIA website, but I would challenge the commission, since y'all are going through all of the investigation, to have someone really show that there is a significant difference in the availability of renewable power early in the day. Because if there's not, then this seems like kind of just an arbitrary penalty to people who work for a living. So thank you. I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, sir. We typically don't do the PowerPoints like this, but I think this public comment hearing may be sparser. So appreciate you presenting and showing up. So thank you, sir. Ms. Glustrom.
I'm coming. Good afternoon, commissioners, and I'm not sure why my video doesn't work. So you get to look at a pretty sunset from North Park from a couple of years ago. So thank you very much for this opportunity. For the record, my name is Leslie Glustrom, Glustrom. And as always, I really appreciate everything the commissioners are doing. I don't need to tell you what a busy time this is for you all. So thank you. And I hope you have a good holiday when the time comes. I hope you have a real holiday. So I wanted to, I thought, 2 minutes was probably the likely amount. So I'm sort of planned 3 kind of relatively quick points here. First of all, I think, you are well briefed on this. And there is a lot of data in the record that does show that we are headed to a time when we will have quite a bit of excess solar. And so there is good reason to think about time of use. And there is especially good reason to think about shaving the peak. And so I'm strongly supportive of those intentions, but I'm not strongly supportive of the tool, which I think of as a rather blunt tool, the time of use tool, and particularly as proposed by Excel. So taking off, my utility monitor hat or whatever and putting on my mother hat. And again, just thinking about all the soccer moms and baseball moms and dance moms and swimming moms and fathers and everything else who come home. And that is such a critical time, such a critical family time in that sort of 5 to 9 p.m. I see good reason for having a time of use rate, but not for 6 hours. So I asked the commission, as many of the parties have asked you, to look at 6 hours really doesn't make sense. We know from Mr. Kuykendall's testimony, the utility consumer advocate witness, and his KK5, his attachment KK5, that the negative ratings for the current time of use from 3 till 7 are going up. Beginning, quote unquote, only 51% of customers were unhappy with it. And after a year or so, it went up to 61%. So that's from Mr. Kuykendall's testimony, and the data is from Excel and KK5. And, only a monopoly would take something that their customers really hate and then make it bigger. So I get that we're trying to shave the peak, but I think there's better ways to do it. I also get that we're trying to avoid curtailment of wind and solar, which I'm strongly supportive of course. So I would ask the commissioners to take a really hard look. One idea I had is that if you really want to have a more extended period of time, perhaps customers could be split into two groups, say one from 4 till 7 and one from 5 to 8, maybe based on the last name on the customer account or things like that. But I really caution the commission against doing what Excel has proposed, because it could easily poison the well for everything else we try to do going forward. So I would really to ask you to take a really hard look at that, and at the very least kind of keep that preferably to a 3 hour, maybe 4 hour time period. Split customers into two groups if you need to, but don't try to ask families to go for 6 hours when they're facing significantly higher electricity costs. On a brighter point, the second point I wanted to make is that, we really are headed into the solar era. We've begun. All of the commissioners have experience with this. I don't need to remind you. And it's really exciting. And somehow I think we want to communicate that with customers. We're headed into the solar era. Electricity really will be much cleaner during the day, and we really are facing very significant curtailment challenges. Again, these are outlined in a lot of the testimonies you've received. You've got all the data there. But what I'm really asking the commission to ask Excel and the commission and the energy office and everybody to do is get really creative about, I'm not a PR person, but what we might think of as making hay while the sun shines. And I recently had to decide when to make my cranberry bread, and I make a lot of cranberry bread this time of year. I'm like, okay, I could do it at 11 a.m. and I'm much more likely to be tapping into the solar era that we're entering into. So I think a number of your parties have suggested a low rate for those solar hours. There's lots of question about, do you start it at 6 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever? You can kind of sort through that. But I think a low rate, carrots tend to work better than sticks. And I think this can really help move us in the right direction and do it in a positive way, while not just turning off 2/3 of the people that Excel is supposed to be serving or more. If they do the 6 hour, I think you'll probably have a riot, the equivalent of a riot on your hand. And then the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was just automating these things. This is the 21st century, and we do have computers, and we can do all sorts of things as we read about all the AI applications and everything else. If Excel would just get on it in terms of making the data available, you actually could cook your dinner in the middle of the day, or you could wash your clothes, or you could run your dryer. You, of course, can charge your cars. You can pre-cool your house, but you don't have to be home to do it, because you do it, with a digital some sort of, I'm not an electrical engineer, but you need a little black box and you need it tied to your phone and you need some choices about how to do this. And, sadly, Colorado has made a lot of mistakes because we couldn't look forward even 5 or 10 years. And the truth is, these automated applications that I'm talking about are already available, and they could have been available here if Excel would have just, they know what their fuel mix is. They know when the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. They get it to now to EIA, Energy Information Administration, quickly. It's usually on within an hour or two. They could make it available in real time along with a day ahead forecast. So let's not use this blunt tool, overuse the blunt tool of TOU. I'm not saying don't do any TOU, but don't overuse a blunt tool when we have much better tools not too far in the future. So again, I just wanted to thank you all for all your hard work. I truly wish you a happy holiday, and we'll see you again on the next big issue. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Ms. Bostrom, and happy holidays to you too. Is there anyone else out there who would like to, Mr. Steve Whitaker?
Thank you, Chairman Blank, and I do appreciate the commission's willingness to have these open comments. I feel like I'm actually speaking to the people who are decision makers in this process, and I do appreciate being able to do that. I am a customer of Excel. I live in Boulder, and I'm here to speak in support of the CRES RE-TOU schedules because they act to incentivize electricity use during the daytime when clean, renewable electricity is most available. I currently adjust my electricity use to make use of the lowest rates during the daytime and avoid use when they're most expensive. And I don't find this a burden. It is easy to do laundry on the weekends when rates are lowest. When necessary, I also use the delayed start feature on my washing machine and dishwasher to use the lowest cost electricity. In the CRES RE-TOU schedules, I particularly like the lowest cost hours are from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. This makes it easy for me to time my larger load use during this period daily. And I appreciate knowing that this is the cleanest electric power available during the day. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinions.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Anita Seitz.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Anita Seitz, and I'm the Advocacy Director for Colorado Communities for Climate Action. We are a coalition of 43 local governments that advocate for strong state climate policy. We are here today supportive of offering time of use rates to align with the cost of service as an option to encourage customers to shift usage from on-peak to off-peak periods. We like the idea of encouraging energy usage when it's coming from renewables and to lower peak demands. And we know that time of use rates can be one of many tools available to help lower peak generation demand on a system. However, in the proposal, as you've heard from other speakers, the time of use rates are only effective in meeting those outcomes if they actually are structured in a way that both entices and provides a feasible pathway for customers to shift usage to times of days, like we said, with the renewables available, and that customers are both aware of and find a benefit in the program. To this point, CC4CA would like to voice the following concerns and provide a few recommendations. The proposed peak periods of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. during winter months, and especially the 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. during summer months, will likely be challenging for residential customers and potentially erode support for the great strides we are making in Colorado in greening our grid. It's hard to imagine folks choosing to prepare dinner for families prior to 3 p.m. or after 9 p.m. We are concerned that if customers feel anxious and stressed about managing their electricity use, they may simply choose to opt out of the time of use rates. This concern is compounded by the fact that as the rates are structured in this proposal, the potential customer savings from shifting usage just aren't very big, lower than the current time of use rates ratio, and are not likely to entice a change of behavior or to accept the risk of energy consumption during a more expensive peak rate. We think, as proposed, customers may just opt out. Looking at testimony from Matt Lerman from the city of Boulder, we noticed an idea that was raised that CC4CA found compelling. One type of energy usage that allows customers a little bit more flexibility and is discretionary as to when it is consumed is that when folks choose to charge their electric vehicles. CC4CA encourages the commission to look at Mr. Lerman's testimony and see if you can disaggregate charging for electric vehicles and allow consumers an option to opt in to time of use rates only for electric vehicle charging. Our second recommendation is to ensure that PSCO engages in robust and continuous engagement with customers and consumers, making sure customers have the data they need to understand how they use their energy, what the time of use rates would mean for them specifically, including graphs and tables sent to them in their email along with their monthly bills, to make it easy to compare how time of use rates would impact them using an easily accessible and usable comparison tool. And finally, allowing them to simply opt out easily and one time if they choose not to go forward. And as I stated before, we would prefer an option where they could opt out with everything other than EV charging. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the opportunity to provide our input.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Ms. McCaffrey and Mr. Houston next. Ms. McCaffrey, Anna McCaffrey.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but not see you.
I can't figure out why. Let's see.
But up there you are.
Oh, there we are. I'm not any expert in any field. I am just a native Denver, Coloradan who can't really believe that the Public Service Commission and Xcel Energy would think that you could not use your electricity from, I think it's 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. is the suggested new time. That's most of the time when people live their lives. And I'm not talking about doing your laundry then. Usually you can figure out how to do your laundry at some time when it's not peak. But the thing that hit me particularly was our climate has become so hot that my greatest electrical use is air conditioning in the summer. And there is no way to not use your air conditioning from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. when it's 100 degrees. It's just not possible. And so I think they're preying on people that, besides, people that come home from work, people that have little children. Okay, kids, now you can come in the kitchen, but we can't touch anything. We can't use the stove. We can't use the microwave. If you want anything to eat, it has to be cold food, because right now the electricity rates are outrageously high and we can't afford that. That time frame, that time of use is just ridiculous. It's, as I said, when it's the hottest in your house in the summertime, you can't control that. You cannot say, oh, well, I'm just not going to have air conditioning. That is not going to work. You can't live without air conditioning in Colorado any longer. It used to be when I was a child, you could. There were about 3 weeks where you needed air conditioning. That is no longer the case. Now we have 3 full months where you have to run your air conditioning if you're going to survive. And, or, if you run it at these ridiculous rates, then you get some bill that, let's see, okay, now I can choose that I'm not going to eat food, but because I need air conditioning. 6 hours is a ridiculous amount of time to tell people that they need to restrict their behavior when it's just not rational at that time frame. And that's all I have to say. I hope somebody can get a handle on Xcel Energy considering the customers, because they don't. It's all about Xcel Energy and how much money they make. And at this day and time, I think that is a ridiculous attitude for a corporation that's a utility to say, well, it doesn't matter what you can afford or what your needs are. This is what we want so that we can pay our CEO $2 million a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Randy Houston.
Thank you. My name's Randy Houston. I've been in the utility industry for about 40 years. I've been on the vendor side. I've been a consultant, and I spent almost 20 years at Xcel in various senior positions. And I have an excellent knowledge of all of their systems, field, technology, whatever. So that's where I'm coming from. I've been watching this thing with interest. Oh, by the way, I'm just representing myself. I've been watching this with interest and reading through all the materials. And frankly, my initial reaction was, well, you've been involved in a lot of these, things in the past, offer some technical opinion. Well, you got more technical opinion than everybody's got an opinion, right? And it's good. It gives you the information you need. What I was going to do, though, was slightly different. And that was more directly address the three of you in terms of my recommendation as you're evaluating this, what you might want to think about. Okay, and this is not technical. If you want to go technical, you do that, but that's not the intention. What I guess I would say is there are four key factors that if I were sitting in your shoes and I was sort of in the back of my mind thinking through, and you got a million of them, but four sort of high level ones that I would be keeping in mind. The first one is whatever you folks decide, keep it simple. It does not work particularly with residential. You can get a lot more complicated with commercial and industrial. Residential, it's got to be simple. I reached out to 10 different people that I knew about that were involved already that had TOU and so forth. And I asked them, how many of you know about it? What do you do? And the answer was 9 out of 10 either didn't know about it or knew about it, but nothing else. The one who did use it basically used it after he received a sticker that he put on his refrigerator. And every morning he'd walk down and all that reminded him and the timing and so forth. Human beings living their lives. It's incredibly important to us. It's not to them. So if the more you make it complicated, the more it's going to get opted out or not used. And the second piece is using along that keep it simple is to do it based on whether it's through this or some other proceeding, how you're going to actually utilize technology and other techniques to let people know. So for example, Xcel puts out their TOU for the program on their home chargers. You walk in, you plug in your car at night. When the rates kick down, the charges will kick in. It doesn't disrupt your home, right? You're not walking out at 9 or 10 o'clock to plug it in. And therefore that it's practical and people, use that. Well, okay, so how do we make that as more general? How do we push that out there? So keeping it simple, both in what the rates are and then how people interact with those rates, I think is incredibly important if you're going to get any kind of, if you're going to achieve the results you want. The second one is be realistic and ask yourself, how would my friends and family? When I was in my various positions, people would come in and I was, for example, the chief architect, enterprise architect at Xcel for a number of years, and everybody would come in and they'd bombard me with all of this information. And in the end, it was great. I would take it into account, but then again, I go, okay, but what's realistic here? All right, what can we accomplish? What can't we accomplish? And this idea of being realistic, and particularly in this case, if the three of you cannot sit there and go, my friends and family would respond positively to what's going on and we use it, then don't do it. I mean, it's all the technology is wonderful, but if your gut doesn't tell you and your family and your friends, you don't believe they truly do it, then personally, I think you shouldn't do it. It's just not, you guys aren't real highfalutin, billionaire Elon Musk running around. You're good, solid people, and your families are going to be very representative of how people react. So that was the second one. The third one I was going to make to you, if again I was sitting in your seat, is be ruthlessly clear on what is success. As I've read this different thing, I think a lot of the confusion comes up to be, well, are we trying to shave the peak? Are we trying to shift this over? Do we want to go, if it's only 1%? Do we want to? And I've heard all of these different positions. Oh, we don't want to have any impact to the people. We want, well, there's going to be some impact. Oh, we're going to save money because we don't have to build. Well, what is success when you implement these rates? Do you want to see 2% shift within 6 months of, by these groups? What do you want? Um, because if you can't do that, then again, you've got a problem because you're going to implement them. And in the end, how do you know if you achieved what you wanted? And as I've looked at this, that was one of the questions I kept going through is I kept asking myself, out of this commission's actions, what is success? And I had asked different people gave me different opinions about what you were looking for. I'm not asking you today, but I am saying if you can't be very clear and then have a mechanism to track it, again, you shouldn't do it. It's just not a good practice. And then the last one, I would say is always remember that this is an exercise in changing human behavior. And that's all we're trying to do here, right? Is change human behavior. There is nothing harder in this world, right, to change than changing human behavior, and particularly in this day of internet and social media and disinformation and so forth. And being at Excel when we went through the metering, I mean, boy, there was disinformation and a lot of it. So I'm very familiar with it, going, back to that type of thing in many, many, many cases. So if you're talking about that, that there's going to be all of that headwind. And then the question becomes, you either got to make it very, very simple, right? Hey, it's just easy to do. It provides me value. That's why I do it. Or you got to make it something that convinces people, right? And to do that, that takes marketing. All right. We just went through a political campaign. That's all a political campaign is. It's marketing, getting out there, telling your story, messages, repeating it, repeating it, repeating it. And if you're trying to sell something to somebody where it's not directly obvious to them why that's a benefit to them, you got to have marketing. And I'll go back again to that little sticker. That little sticker made all the difference for that person. So what are we going to do? So again, I wouldn't ever presume to, think that I could be in your seats or anything else, and I don't mean that. So please don't take me as presumptuous. But as somebody who has had to make a lot of fairly major decisions in my career, I would say keep it simple, be realistic, all right? You can't support it, your family doesn't support it, then you shouldn't do it. I would say be ruthlessly clear on success and how you're going to measure it, when you're going to measure it. And then the last one is, if you don't consider this an exercise in human behavior, and then what does it take, which isn't just create new TOUs that by definition it magically happens, then I think you've got an issue there too. So that was my 4 comments to you, and I really, really, truly appreciate the opportunity to present them to you. And I'm very interested to see how this plays out. So thank you so, so much. And by the way, I also say Merry Christmas, happy holidays, best season to you, whatever, and your families. Thank you.
Happy holidays to you too, sir. Welcome to the process, and thanks so much for your comments.
Yeah, I've seen it now from 3 different sides, so it's interesting.
Well, me
Take
too.
care.
Anyone else who would like to speak, please raise your hand. All right, let's take a break till say 2:15 and come back in 30 minutes. 2:15. Thanks all. 30 minutes. Good afternoon. It's 5:15. We're back on the record in a public comment hearing on the Public Service Company time of use rates. Is there anyone out there who would like to speak? Please hold up your hand. Seeing no one, why don't we take a 40-minute break, 45-minute break till 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Thanks. Good evening. It's the 6 p.m. and we're back on the record in the Public Service Company time of use proceeding. Would anybody like to speak? Please hold up your hand. Mr. Kors, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just two quick comments. One is it seems like we're being bait and switch, sort of. We were given the option of signing into this system of time shifting, given a certain set of parameters, starting at 7 p.m., the low cost. Now we're being forced to go to 9 p.m. For a lot of us who are not night owls, that makes it difficult to take any advantage of that. The bait and switch thing, I think, is a real problem for me. The other is that I cannot but view this as a short-term solution, because reading a study recently by out of California, taking a look at what's going to happen if we get the volume of adopters of electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging. If we end up saying, okay, guys, charge at night, everybody's going to put in these level 2 or chargers at home at some expense, using them at night and shifting a huge burden of power to the overnight hours. And that would require substantial increase in generation capacity during those times when there's no solar, no wind available. So those are my comments, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. Welcome to the process. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Going once, going what, twice, 3 times. Let's come back at 6:40 for one last time to check. So let's go on break till 6:40. Thanks. All right, we're back in the public service time of use rate proceeding. Just seeing if anyone has any final comments they'd like to make. Mr. Coors.
I believe I've made mine, and I'm okay with that.
All right.
Not that it'll make any difference, but thank you.
We're here. We heard them. With that, thanks everybody for coming. Any final thoughts, Commissioner Plan? I think we're probably do not have a large audience.
Yeah, appreciate everybody who came out sharing their thoughts and yeah, just appreciate your participation in the process.
Commissioner Gilman, and I'll go to you, Director Wright, before we sign off. Commissioner Gilman.
Likewise, appreciate the input and thank you to those who shared today.
Director White, final thoughts?
Just wanted to say thank you, commissioners. This is a long evening after a long day. So
appreciate it.
And thanks to those who gave us comments.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Greatly appreciate it. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks all.
Thank you.